Coos.
He still has a minute on my phone. My phone says he has 1 minute. Oh, now it says 10. Now it says 10?
Yeah, yours too, huh? Imagine that. John, are you there?
Your mic's
John, are you there?
I don't think it matters how many times he said if he's not there.
Has he got his phone on mute? Do we have to call him? You texted him? You have to call the house and.
Well, you could just start without it. It's good time.
I guess we'll have,
Because
but
I've
he's the
never been,
liaison
so.
to forestry, so I hate to start with him.
We've been deserted.
went to sleep.
Do I want Florence here for the public health portion? That's totally up to Mike. If he just wants to bring Rebecca.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and catch up. Forestry.
Okay, you guys have this page with the reforestation budget on it. I don't know, did we hand that out?
Okay.
I was wondering if they'd already had one.
No, I don't have it. Melissa? The one pager on reforestation?
No, we don't have it.
You guys not? Oh, Kathy has extra copies? Okay. John, are you back yet? Thank you. Any more than one? Oh.
Okay, some things I'd like to say about reforestation budget to start with. We made some, I guess it's our regular budget, we made some significant cuts. We've spent extra money we had this year to reduce that reforestation budget of $380,840. You can take that seed purchase of $30,000 off. We've taken that off. We bought that seed. We bought about $9,000 worth of chemical. I think we can actually reduce that, the chemical purchase down to about $10,000. We've looked at those numbers pretty hard. So we can take like $28,110 off of that. I think, and then Kathy has a couple other things we are looking at reducing that was in our budget.
So the cooler roof, we had 40,000, and we figured we could cut it by 15 if we can get our contract out and they can go ahead and order up the metal that we need. So we could reduce that. That's in the equipment line item in our budget. Yeah, we had the 40 in there, so we could reduce that by 15. And also, The D-class taxes, we had those in line item notices and reports. That was $27,000 that we could take out of that line item.
That was something that I looked into and says that we didn't have to pay that, as you maybe know. Assessors, I believe, are saying we still have to, but Nat says no. So, not
As far
sure.
as I know, we don't have to,
That's what Nat sent me. I thought the same thing too.
because it's supposed to be disqualified the day before the sale, which then the burden falls on the seller. And I called the Department of Revenue, and they agreed with me and sent me the information, which I gave to Nat.
So I think that
The
was,
important part was they agreed with them. That's
Yeah.
what I'm excited about.
That's a first.
that's pretty good to me. It's like,
It's a
that's
first.
great.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever called the Department of Revenue and had them say, we agree with you.
I think that's, was that all the savings we had that, well, I think that's like almost $100,000, I
$100,000,
believe,
yeah.
off of our regular budget. And that would actually equal also, that would do our 10% cut also. You want to look at it that way, which I do. So that should take our budget down. I don't know if it's exactly 100,000, I think, Kathy.
100,110.
Other than that, nothing changes much in our budget. I guess if anything specific or you guys want to have questions about, we probably have talked the exact same things every year.
I just want to make sure I got everything that you wanted to print down.
Mhm.
So it was the chemical purchase, you're bringing that down to 10,000.
Correct,
You're taking 27,000 out of notices and reports.
that's correct.
And then you're taking 15,000 out of equipment.
Yes.
And then I think I missed one.
30,000 for this seed.
For the seed.
Yep,
Okay.
then the reforestation budget said about the fifth item down, seed purchase 30,000,
So that's just down to zero.
down to zero, correct?
Thank you.
So, does anybody have any questions on the rest of our budget? And we can go through it line by line.
On the rent and royalties, is half of this because of rent monies or something?
I think rent, well, okay, that's Kathy, I think rent and
What's
royalties.
the question?
Well, rents and royalties
Oh, right, first page.
on the income
Yes.
at the top.
Mm-hmm.
You had 6,900,000 last year's budget, and you got 3,500,000 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just wondering, what source of income are you lacking?
Well, 2019 sales, when we didn't sell any sales in 2019.
Okay, so this is timber sales then?
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
okay, well, it said rent and royalties, and I
Yeah.
didn't understand that.
You blame that on Megan, she names that.
Oh, okay.
Here when I got here.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So when we do have them, that money flows
Right,
into several
right,
years.
I understand,
Yeah.
I just
Okay.
didn't think that.
Know what that was.
Because
Mhm.
well, it wasn't labeled, so I could understand it.
I have that same problem with some of our stuff in our budget too. It's like, what is that?
However, you probably don't know, Greg and Sven and Neil, that with less and less sawmills, lumber mills operating in the county, we may get less and less for our timber sales. Shipping is very expensive to go out of the county. Up and down, basically I-5.
Competition.
Yeah, as the competition gets less, the price gets less.
With that, the current economy, our current timber sales didn't do too too well either. We just had a sale, we only sold one of our sales out of the three. Just because of what the economy's doing, the mills are shutting down or curtailing just about everywhere, so. And the ones that are operating with timber off their own land rather than even the stuff they bought from us prior. So, that's a discussion I need to have with the commissioners about moving forward on our timber sales too. Sometime we'll have to have a work group or something on that.
Hey Lance, this is John. I'm having a hard time hearing you, and I think Neil may be too.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, that's better.
Kathy, can you,
Well, we only have one microphone for me and Kathy. I was trying to split it up. So is there something that you don't think you heard clear you want me to repeat? Did you hear about our $100,000 savings in our reforestation budget?
John or Neil, did you hear that?
Yes. I'm still having a hard time, clearly.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we saved.
Heard that.
We cut our reforestation budget down by $100,000. I've talked to you about this before. Did you want me to repeat what we saved our money in? Well, it's not just our reforestation. We cut that, the taxes we had to pay out of our land purchases. That was $27,000. Our seed purchase, we got that on this year's money, so it's down $30,000 there. Our chemical, we're cutting down to 10,000, which is a reduction of 28,110. The cooler roof, hopefully I just got approval from Nat today to move forward with that. Hopefully we can get our metal built for that project. So that's reduced from $40,000 in the next year down to $25,000. So that's a $15,000 that we can increase the transfer amount. Total of $100,110.
Very good. Thank you.
So does anybody have any other questions? I don't think there's no big surprises in our budget that I've noticed. It's pretty much the same as it is every year.
It looks like they're studying it.
No questions from me.
Neil?
No questions.
Hmm? So Hunter, Sven, or Greg, so Melissa?
No.
Nor I, okay. Motion?
Move tentative approval of the budget for the forestry department.
Have a second? Greg? Discussion?
Is that with the adjustments?
Yes.
Yes. Discussion? Hearing no additional discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, County Forest Reserve budget? Oh, we have rents and royalties again. So the big news is we're down 3.2 million, sort of.
Well, the bad news is if we don't sell more timber sales, we won't be putting anything into that fund. We would, out of last year's, we still have Walden's Marsh
Mhm.
log.
That's actually from the year before.
Right, so whatever flows in there, 26% would go in, but as of our new sales, we didn't exceed our acreage, so.
We're only up to 230 acres. with our new sales. And last year we had 0. So that's why I say we need to have that discussion probably pretty, like ASAP kind of, where we want to move with our sale program. Said we'll probably, excuse me, need to have a meeting on the future sale program probably before, possibly, if we can, before the end of this month. I know it's short timing, but we kind of need to move on that pretty quick. Decide what the commissioners want to do with that.
You hear that, John?
No.
I said we'll need to have a meeting before the end of April to decide how you want to move forward with our timber sale program. Remember last year we
Okay.
sold nothing, and this year we've only sold 230 acres out of our allowable cut of, what we've been gonna cut was more like 450.
That brings up another subject, is that I understand from reading various publications that we're overcutting the county forest. Can you explain that? If we are?
In my opinion, we're not overcutting the county forest. You know, it's like, I think I've told you once before, 10 years ago, we had no sales. Last year, we had no sales. And this year, our sale program is down right now by 50%. I don't see that as overcutting.
We're still on a certain number of year cycle.
Yeah, we moved out of a 40 to 45 year rotation because the mills don't want that big wood anymore, and we're well under what we could actually be cutting. Even at a 45 year rotation, we can do 350 acres a year, and we've accelerated, get rid of that oversized wood. It's getting harder and harder to sell, but we can maintain that 350 acres a year for forever. There's going to be no problem with that. I guess, we were gifted a 50, probably when we got the county forest, a 50-year-old forest to start with. So, we had a head start on the whole program. Now it's just the change in the markets and everything else. We don't want to grow too big of a tree either. Get too big of a tree and nobody wants to buy it. So, we got a lot of that spruce. We still got trees out there, a lot of that 30-inch plus stuff, and the local mill doesn't want anything basically over 28. So, they're not, they'll buy it, then they have to ship the big wood over to Dillard or somewhere with a bigger lathe. We're just in a kind of a tough spot with the larger wood out there.
So, Melissa and John, do you want a work session, or you want to do it on the talk with forestry on the 21st? During the regular budget?
I think we should do a work session.
Do a work session? Okay, I'm good with a work session. John, are you good with?
I do too. I think that too.
Okay.
I think that's appropriate. One thing I'd like to point out, I think pretty much everyone recognizes this, but maybe not. When we're talking about oversized timber, this is timber that is too big to be manufactured here, processed here locally, or if it isn't, if it's not processed here locally, the one customer that can handle it knows of the situation and price, and takes advantage of that. Of course they would. And so we don't get very much for those big trees. The big trees we're talking about are not Douglas fir, they are spruce. If it were Douglas fir, there are a couple of small sawmills in the area that process those high-grade old logs into premium lumber products. But spruce has absolutely no value. I don't think that's an exaggeration. As sawlog, the only value they have is to be processed into veneer. And so we don't get a premium for our larger spruce logs, the same type of premium you might expect for a high-grade, old-growth, or large Douglas fir log. So when we're talking about oversized timber, it's by and large spruce that we're talking about.
Mhm.
which has less value than smaller spruce logs. So that, I just want to make sure that everyone was aware of what we're talking about when we talk about harvesting, extra harvest of oversized timber.
Okay. So Bobby will try and coordinate and get
Do
a
you want
work
to just
session
pass this
set
down?
up.
Yes.
Disinfect them.
Okay. Thank you. I guess that concludes forestry. Any other questions about it? I have a motion for the reserve fund.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Alrighty. On to Board of County Commissioners budget.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
So we
Uh,
put-
What was just passed around is the county clerk's equipment replacement
Bob's holding
schedule.
those.
Oh, Bob's keeping them all, sorry. This is what Debbie was talking about when she asked if she had included it. It's just a schedule of her equipment and when she would like to replace it,
Yeah,
and the
Okay.
estimated replacement cost each time.
okay, that's good. So, Ms. Bobby, are you gonna present the Commissioner's budget? Or is Melissa?
I can present the commissioner's budget.
Okay.
All right. So our regular wages are pretty much the same. PERS went up because of that PERS bill that we were talking about
Mhm.
earlier, that requires the payment of PERS on all employees that receive PERS. So we had one employee that we weren't previously paying PERS on because they were a Tier 1 retiree. But according to the Oregon State PERS office, we have to pay it on all employees. There's no
Used to be an exception.
there's no exception. We even said, do you know we're talking about Bob Main? And they said, yeah, still. So
You
we
didn't
were kind of
mention that.
surprised. We thought if we dropped his name, it might handle it, but it didn't, which is weird.
You'd have been better off if you hadn't said anything.
I said, we're asking you to invoke the Bob Main rule right now.
Yeah. It said, oh, doubly no.
Our proposed supplies budget is $500, which is the same as it has been. Other expenses, $600. Insurance premiums, as was mentioned by another department, are down a little bit this year, which none of us are complaining about. Vehicle expenses, $100. And contracted services, which includes a little bit of temporary help, which basically she covers when we have board meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and our cost allocation. And that's all there is in the board's budget.
Not much to it.
No. And the, under revenue, the little bit of money that we do bring in. $25 for copies. So with that, I would move tentative approval of the Board of Commissioners budget.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. Sven?
It's presented.
I would like, oh, go ahead, Stan.
It's presented with cuts, is that correct? That's what the header is on this detail sheet?
Yes.
Just to be clear about,
Yeah.
everyone else is presenting too, and
Yeah, it's with the
Yeah,
cut.
there was, I just noticed that when you said that, there was another one that Katie did not get included. Did she not?
Oh, I have
both
the
of them?
little thing with that.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
have too, and, this one actually shows my salary being cut 10%.
Oh, it does.
Because that's the only place that we had to cut. In the original budget, it was, everybody was fully staffed, and we included the purchase of a copy machine
Yeah.
for $5,500, because ours is 10 years old, and, we've had lots of maintenance calls on it, and the guys said they're not gonna be able to keep it up for long.
So,
So
and
this-
you can see that budget on page 20 in your binder.
Okay.
Sorry, it is on.
I didn't either until he said that.
Yeah. I didn't notice it either.
does equipment
Which page,
and
20?
capital outlay 55.
55, okay. Thank you.
Page number?
Page 20.
20?
So in the spirit of what we've been doing with the other departments, I guess I would like to approve this budget with Bobby's pay remaining the same and the copier in there.
So you wanna withdraw your?
You're amending your motion
I'll amend my motion, yes.
in a second?
And I'll second.
Okay.
Any more
Okay,
discussion?
so we need to vote on the amendment first. And then vote on the regular, one, and then vote on the amended motion. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, so on the first motion,
Would you prefer I
You
just
wanna
withdraw my
withdraw?
motion?
I
I'll
would,
just
rather
withdraw
go
all
through
my,
the
I'll
whole
withdraw all my motions. How about
All
that?
right.
They're all withdrawn.
let's start all over.
Okay,
He has to withdraw the seconds.
Yeah,
Ask for
I
a new
withdraw
motion,
my seconds.
there we go.
a new motion, one that's cleaned up.
I move to approve the proposed Board of Commissioners budget as presented on page 20 of the budget binder.
Do I have a second on that?
Tentatively approved, sorry.
Second.
Greg seconds.
I had to read the page 20 first.
Okay. Discussion on page 20. Is everybody still studying, or
No,
you're
I'm
done?
good.
No, that's,
John and Neil, you have any more comments about page 20? And the
No.
Well, I would like to point out that in spite of how much more Bob's costing us, we still kind of like having him around.
He seems to add value.
It's,
That's probably the highest compliment you're ever going to get.
it's heartwarming.
seems to.
All right, enough of that kind of discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? It passes. All right. So we are at the end of the day for April 14th.
Do you want a new number?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
that would be wonderful if we have some new numbers.
23.
How much we're still short?
$1,861,300.
$1,861,000. End of
That's
this,
with the increased formula from the cuts that
And
Lance made.
Okay.
and the cuts that forestry made, everything.
So, but you have all the budgets in there that
Wow.
the board tentatively approved?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to jump up by 2 million when we do public safety.
Theoretically, no,
Okay.
depending on what they ask for.
All right, if they present the budget that was presented to the
Yes.
commissioners.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Anything else for the budget committee today? John, Neil?
No.
No,
Okay, we're in recess till tomorrow at 8:30, I do believe. Yeah, at which time we'll start with Public Works.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're in recess.
thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the truth is, we've cut so much over the years,
Yeah.
you know, there's not a lot extra in there.